let's link up with Krista on the FYX. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
Krista, most importantly, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Today. Really excited to have this conversation. I've had the opportunity to listen to several of your podcasts, and I really like the interactions and the engagements that you have with your guests. So looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we're excited.
Cool. So who is Mo Wadhwani, you ask, and why should people care?
Yes.
Let's see. Honestly, I am a pretty standard, normal guy. There's really nothing spectacular or special about me. I am the average dude, right? I am a husband, a son, a father, and we're a very, very active family. So we spend a lot of time as a family. We've got two young ones, 11 and 8-year-old, and our life revolves around their schedule and their active lifestyles. So we spend a lot of time together. Outside of that, I'm a corporate professional. I've been a corporate leader now for the last, an executive for the last 8-9 years. I've been in corporate America in the finance space for about 20 years now. So have kind of grown and evolved through the corporate space. That has given us the opportunity to live in many different places, many different states. And what makes me relevant, I'd say, for this conversation today, why I hope people care to listen to what I have to say, is because Noor, my wife, and I have just recently launched Athletifreak. And Athletifreak is a premium apparel brand, but it's also a movement. And that's what I think is most exciting about it. Athletifreak is a brand born out of pure passion. I mean, this is a brand that we are extremely excited about. Obviously, there's a gear part of it. The quality, the comfort that our gear offers is going to be unparalleled, unmatched. So we're super excited about that. But what is Athletifreak? It's a movement. We believe wholeheartedly that movement, sports, athletics is something that cuts across any and all differences that humans may see in one another. So we believe that if you look at the country someone is from, their nationality, their color, their name, what sports discipline they're in, none of that matters when you go down to the core of what makes them an athlete. It all comes out of passion, and that's what our brand's about. It's about bringing people together because of that uniting factor, which is the pulse, the fire, the energy within them, which is what we call the freak. And it's all about kind of finding that inner freak and unleashing it, like we like to say.
I love that. And there's so much to unpack in everything you just said. Of course, I'm so glad you launched right into the freak piece and talked about the movement. I think that will 100% really kind of be the foundation for this conversation. But you threw a nod to it, I'll underscore it. The fact that your clothes are really cool. You're repping one of your shirts right now. And I think that we just started talking via Instagram, right? If I remember correctly, that's how we met. And I started stalking the Athletifreak page like I do with many clothing and apparel brands. And I have to tell you guys, you know what I'm going to bring up is that sweatshirt that I believe is your bestseller. Super cool. Just a type of clothing that is simple and really classic, but it's still fun and definitely very comfortable. And I love the detail, like the hoodie that has like does it say Athletifreak on the inside of the hoodie? Is that what's written in there? Yeah. So cool. Like such a fun and interesting and different way to kind of change up your gear. And I think those little tiny things like that kind of really speak to the fact that if this is your first round of launching this thing and bringing it to life, and it's still so much in its infancy, I'm really excited to see where you guys go with all of it. So that's awesome. I know probably a lot of that is coming from Noor. So it sounds like we might need to get her on the show to do a whole thing just about the fashion piece. So we'll save that for her for another time. But whatever you want to throw in, you of course can too.
Yeah, absolutely. Noor, I mean, she is a creative genius. And her and I, we go back and forth, and it's pretty amazing, right? Having this husband-wife relationship and now also business partner.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about that.
And we go at it sometimes, but at the end of the day, our core values and what we're really trying to achieve are identical. I mean, we are eye to eye, 100% resonating and vibing on that, which is really important. But it comes down to quality, integrity, and simplicity. And when it comes to our gear, that's what we're looking for. You'll often hear us say it's by athletes for athletes, and that can easily be said.
Mm-hmm.
We truly, truly integrate that into what we do. So just using that hoodie, for example, when you look at it from the outside, it's a black hoodie.
Right, exactly.
Once you start to get into it and you actually look at some of the intricate details about our Unleash hoodie, absolutely our bestseller so far. I'll say it sold out in 2 weeks, which was awesome, but we're back in stock now. But it's what's on the inside that counts, right? And that's what we really talk about when that product itself is it embodies that principle. It's what's on the inside that counts. So when someone looks at an athlete, they don't see the countless hours that they've put into training. They don't see what they do in the darkness, right? That brings them into the light. And that's why we are so excited about that hoodie. I mean, it's a hoodie, but at the same time, everything that's special about it is on the inside. And it's like this gift that keeps giving, because you get to keep unpacking or discovering these new features of it. And at the end of the day, the quality of an athlete is spoken by what's on the inside. And that's what the Unleash hoodie is for us.
I think the symbolism behind that is awesome and amazing. I'm so excited to talk more on all of those things. But first, have to ask you the signature FYX question, which is about coffee and caffeine. So what's your go-to coffee order? I know there's no way that a guy who has a big side hustle, a corporate job, 2 kids, is a dad, and all these things going on, he's got to have some caffeine in the morning. So what do you like to sip on?
So coffee is our obsession. We absolutely love coffee. So thank you for asking. I'm known to be a freak for 2 reasons. One is my passion towards fitness and wellness, and the other is my passion towards coffee, actually.
That's why we get along so well. Makes sense.
Exactly. So we actually have 7 different coffee machines at home.
No way.
Depending on what type of coffee we want to have that day.
Okay.
What type of coffee I drink in the morning is really going to be my Americano, which is before training. My morning is just a standard drip coffee. Afternoon is where I hit my espresso. And that's for that quick fix. And then sometimes we'll do a pour over in the afternoon, but absolutely love coffee, love grinding our own coffee. I love exploring and finding new beans coming from different parts of the world. So that's something that we could probably have a whole separate discussion.
We could have a podcast on that. Yeah. Like you said, pour over, and immediately I started doing pour overs in the last like 6 to 10 months, and I'm not the best at it. So of course my mind was like, oh, let me ask Mo what's the technique and the art behind it. Cause there's definitely like a little bit
of art. You've got to perfect it. You've got to perfect it.
Cause if I switch the beans, sometimes I have some really bad coffee, and I like the cup is bad. I know it's not the beans. It was the way that I made it. So we'll take that one offline, and I'll definitely put that in my back pocket to ask you.
That's a good space to get into.
Yeah. Sure. But let's move into the athletic piece, because I know that you're an Ironman guy, but I know that you don't just wake up one morning and all of a sudden decide to participate, and really just training for the Ironman, let alone actually competing in it, is a feat in and of itself, and sticking to it and having that discipline. So tell me where your interest in athletics started. Did you play a lot of sports growing up? What is kind of your origin story with that piece of everything?
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up in Africa, actually, in Nigeria. And I don't even know or remember when and how I fell in love with sports, but movement has just always been who I am. It's been what I do. I remember back to learning taekwondo, to learning swimming, to learning soccer. And growing up in Africa, that's just what we did. We just played sports. We were riding our bikes. We were doing stupid stunts, which we never should have been doing. But that's just what we did growing up. And then I think where it really became my foundation in life is when we moved to the US. And when we moved to the US, it was a difficult time for me at that point, because
how old were you?
I was in my early teens, right?
Okay.
I'm just getting to be like this 13-year-old, which, as we know,
hard time for anybody.
Right? That's a difficult time. Mm-hmm. And coming into new culture, new environment, just at that point, you're much more aware of even things like skin color and
Mhm.
race and those types of things. And there's a lot of fitting in and wanting to find who you are and where you fit in and who your friends are. And coming to a new continent, new country, new place, new school, new culture, new color, everything's different, right? That was not easy for me. And I think what made it a little bit harder is we move into this predominantly, say, white neighborhood. I'm coming from a country where everyone I knew was uh, dark colored or black. I'm Indian. So it's like this entire mix of everything going on at once. And that made it quite difficult to acclimate. The way I acclimated was playing soccer, playing basketball, learning what football even was, and then playing
Yeah.
football, running. So playing on teams, playing sports, uh, gave me a way to connect with people that I didn't necessarily even speak the same language as. We spoke English,
Mhm.
but it was a very different English.
Of course.
But with the beauty of sports, and this is where my love comes from, is you put a ball on a field, you put a ball on a court, and you don't even have to talk. You know what to do. And everyone just knows exactly how to come together, how to connect as a team, because you're playing on the same team. You're trying to score the same goal. You're defending the same net. And for me, that's where it all started. From there, it was just a matter of playing sports all my life. I think once I got into my early 30s, and I just got so busy with our children's team schedules and coaching them even, that I'd kind of transitioned into, okay, well, the only way I'm going to have time to train is if I do it at 4 or 5 a.m. or if I do it at 10 or 11 p.m. And that's where I got into endurance sports, because
Okay.
it's something I can do more on my own,
Mhm.
as opposed to having to join a team and do it with a group of people.
How in reflecting on that transition and to your point about using sports and athletics and fitness as a way as a teen to make friends and make those connections, to then now just for the time's sake, right, of being kind of forced to have to train on your own. What has that been like for you? Like, was it hard at first? Like, do you miss that at all, or do you think it was just like life went in that direction and you care enough about staying fit so you wanted to do what you had to do? Do you miss that?
Absolutely, I miss it. Absolutely. I mean, fortunately, I get my fix because I've had the opportunity to continue coaching my children's teams.
Right.
But just from a coaching perspective, I still get that team dynamic, in a different dimension, but I still get that same kind of feeling, that high of competition. Um, as a coach, not as a player, I absolutely miss playing. I mean, I'll stop and just watch a pickup game sometimes, a pickup basketball game or pickup soccer games, just because when you're talking about competition, it can be at the highest level or it can be at any level from there down through little league. The element of competition is still alive. That passion to go out there and play hard is equal at every level in my eyes. So I do miss it, but at the same time, I, I think one of the beauties about life is just being able to adapt through the journey, and you kind of see where you are in the journey, you embrace it, you make the most of it. For me, now that I've gotten so deep into endurance, I'm absolutely in love with it, right? So I'm putting a couple hours a day into some form of training. And now, I mean, I cannot imagine my life without the 10-mile run I went for yesterday, because it's just it's a part of my lifestyle. It's a part of my DNA at this point.
I think that brings up a great point too, that if I had to guess, but as busy as you are and all the things that you do, if you make time to be like, okay, I'm going to go out for a 10-mile run, and that's kind of a non-negotiable, I'm sure, because it makes you feel good. How do you set those healthy boundaries, even just for the sake of not running down the rabbit hole that many entrepreneurs do of like, oh, if I take away this time from focusing on the business, then that could be really detrimental to where I want to be in 3 to 6 months. How do you look at that, and how do you kind of coach yourself through that to avoid that mentality?
Yeah,
Because it
no,
doesn't sound like you have it.
well, I think it's a really good point, right? Because and many people you speak to that have found the right balance of multitasking or balancing different things. I mean, there's the element of compartmentalizing, right? So you take different things, you put them into different buckets and categories, and say, at this time I do this, at this time I do this, and so on and so forth. For me, just like I eat and just like I sleep, I have to train. I mean, that's a part of my life. It's something I have to do. But when I'm running or when I'm cycling, I'm not listening to music while I'm out there, right? That is my time to disconnect from a computer or from phone conversations. And it's actually my creative time. While I'm running, that's when I'm probably doing my best thinking. While I'm cycling, that's when I'm doing my most creative thinking because I'm out in nature. I'm not able to communicate with anyone. No one's able to get into my ear or my head. I'm not consuming at that point because otherwise we're on our phones, we're on whatever device, and we're continuously consuming. At that point, my brain is completely free and adrenaline's flowing. I'm connecting with what I'm passionate about, and my best, most creative ideas come through at those points. And a lot of times, as soon as I get back, the first thing I do is just download. I'm taking everything that came up during that time and boom, 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 boom. I'm writing it down because I'm ready to go. I'm recharged. I'm re-energized. And many people that have not found that rhythm will find training as exhausting or an energy drain. For me, it's actually a recharge. I go out and I come back and I'm stronger than ever because I'm now refueled, I'm recharged, I'm ready to go. And I mean that's what keeps me going.
And I think I'm so glad you said that. To me, what I heard through all of that is that's your meditation,
You know?
and you being able to unplug. And um, I was actually listening to a podcast maybe 2-3 weeks ago. It was with a meditation, or maybe she might have even been like a Reiki specialist or something like that. And I cannot remember who it was, but I wish I could give her credit because this is totally not my thought process, but I loved it and shared it with a few clients recently. How many times, and anybody listening to this, and I'm sure you've done it, Mo, even though it sounds like you've kind of found what works for you, because I know I'm super guilty of this. You're looking at the clock and you know, like, okay, I want to go train at X time, or I want to make time to get outside with my kids or whatever it is. And you've got like 3 emails that you convince yourself, like, I really just want to fire these off so I can feel good and just like check the box and then be present for whatever the next thing is that I want to do, whether that's spend time with family, train, etc. And the person who was describing the scenario on this episode I was listening to made such a great point, because she said, if we all could just take time to appreciate the fact that if we got up from our computer and walked away and did the thing that we know would make us better, movement in this case, when we go back to write that email, it'll take half as long. It'll just flow and you'll feel so much better because you'll get it done and then you'll be able to move on to the next thing. And I took that information and shared it with 2 of my clients that I coach, who are a couple. Busy mom and dad, both have full-time jobs, 2 small kids. They're running all over the place all the time. And I just kind of repeated exactly what I shared with you. And I was so excited because the next week we got on a phone call for a little check-in. And the mom said to me, she's like, I thought about what you told me about that email scenario and I did it. And I just went for a walk and you were so right. I felt so much better. And it's so great when people can just take that one little tiny piece of advice and try it one time and see how great it makes them feel. And then from there, it's repeatedly doing that you ultimately have the mindset shift. Because I think an important point of what you're saying is too, that it doesn't happen overnight, that you just get to this place of like, yeah, like training is my non-negotiable. I have to get outside to do X, Y, and Z thing. And it ebbs and flows. And you brought up that point of being adaptable. So with that, what I'd love to ask you about is, let's take adaptation into the past 12, 16 months that everybody's had to adapt with all the changes as a result of COVID and how the rhythm of our lives has changed. What did that look like for you, your family? You guys launched Athletifreak in the middle of a lot of craziness. So tell me about it.
Yeah, it's definitely been a very interesting time for everyone. Adaptation has been the secret, right? That's the only way to make it work. Either you kind of resolve or you break, and it's one of those two. I mean, it's been a very interesting time. I think the secret for, I won't say for me, it's been for our family,
Mm-hmm.
has
It's a
been
team effort, of course.
absolutely. It's been to know who we are and what we are. And there's actually a very short anecdote that I can share because this is something that
Please do.
is very important to us. There's this professor, right, and he has his classroom in front of him, and he has this little jar, and he puts these big rocks, and then these medium-sized rocks, and then these small rocks, and then these little pebbles on the table. And he tells his class, I want you to take all of this and put it into this jar. And they all look at it and they're like, that's absolutely not even possible. There's no way you can fit all of that into this jar at once. And they try, and they put the little ones and then the big, and it just doesn't fit because it doesn't look possible. And what he then shows them is, well, if you take the big rocks and you put them in there first, and then you put the medium-sized ones in next, and it'll kind of filter through and find its space. And then you put the small ones in, and same thing, it filters through and finds the little nooks and crevices and makes its way through. And then finally you put the sand in there, and that fills up all the little empty voids that were remaining. Everything does fit, but you have to know your priorities. And for us, 24 hours in a day, we, number one, have to take care of the family. Number two, we've got our commitments through our jobs and so on and so forth. And then we've got this vision of Athletifreak that is really important for us to really launch and get going. And how do you possibly fit all of that into 24 hours plus train? Well, you got to know what your priorities are. You have to know what's non-negotiable, what's non-compromisable, what needs to be done and when. And then you find how to make the rest of the time work. And I'll be honest with you, we haven't slept a lot in the last year and a half or so getting this up and running, but we are just maniacally focused on what's important, what our priorities are, how we need to get them done, and we get it done. And as long as we're working together as a team, especially Noor and I, as long as we're supplementing and complementing each other, it's been actually very smooth for us. And that requires discipline back to those core values, back to those priorities. And we have to remind each other of that even sometimes. But as long as we hold true to that identity, as long as we're authentic to ourselves, it's been good. And I'm very confident and optimistic it's going to continue that way going forward.
So let's talk about the creative process in combination with what you just said about those values and how the two of you really thought through the vision for Athletifreak and continue to. I know it's evolving, but I do think that something that's been really impressive to me in all of our conversations is that you are very decisive and sure and confident of like, this is our mission, this is what we plan to do, and can demonstrate the 20 different ways that you're already living and breathing it, and then incorporating other, we'll get into the icons and all that, but other people who are a part of that. And I love how defined that is. And I think for entrepreneurs out there, that can be a really hard step. It's like people have this idea in their head, but the struggle can come in and like, well, how do I best communicate this? Especially when there's lots of noise out there in social media and our attention spans are so short and we're constantly trying to be grabbed in all these different directions. So between you and your wife, and then maybe even your kids too, because I do want to save that question for the next one. But what did that look like for the two of you guys when you sat down and you were like, okay, we know we want to start this apparel business, or maybe you didn't know that it was apparel. I kind of want to back into like, what's the history behind those conversations and when did you finally decide like, let's go for it?
Yeah, I'd say one thing that we've had from the beginning at a macro level is clarity. We've known exactly what our vision is from the beginning. And again, I say at a macro level. So it all, I mean, this sounds pretty ridiculous. Yeah. But 4:15 a.m. is like circa 2015, right? I'm getting ready to go out for a 8-9 hour training day, which includes a brick, which is a long bike ride followed by a run.
Okay.
At that point, we lived in Austin, Texas. And 4:15, I'm having breakfast, and it's just beaten down on my head that every single person in my family thinks I'm a freak. Like they're continuously just saying freak, 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 because I enjoy an 8-9 hour training day. And as I'm having my breakfast, drinking my coffee, it hits me that, you know, what the hell? I'm proud of it. Like, yes, I am a freak. This is something that I'm passionate about. This is something I believe in. I am, and I'm not the only one. There's a lot of us out there. And I literally went and woke Noor up at 4:30 in the morning. Not sure how she was going to react to that, right? It could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is my vision. And what was beautiful is at that point, she was like, absolutely, we got to do this. And her having a fashion design background, it was just an automatic synergy, right? I mean, you've got my passion for movement, her passion for design, you bring it together and boom. I mean, it's perfect. Why didn't we think of it before that? So from the beginning, we knew it was going to be an apparel brand. We
Okay.
knew it was going to be catered to athletes, for athletes, by athletes. Um, and that vision, like I said, this was 2015 that it came along, with kids being 4 and 1 or so, or 5 and 2 at that point. Like, okay, we can't possibly do it now. And we parked it, which really hurt doing. I mean, that was really tough to do.
I'm sure.
And about a year and a half ago, just before COVID, in fact, we're like, you know what? We've got to be authentic to who we are. And if this is what we are and this is who we are and we have our plans, it's now or never. Let's go for it. And that's where we recommitted to bringing it back to life and going after it and following our dream. And we said, we're going to be an apparel brand. We're going to be top quality. I mean, we're really going to focus on the quality of it. This is the vibe that Athletifreak is going to have. And so we kind of set those big blocks that I mentioned, right?
Okay.
We
Yeah.
kind of set up our big blocks and said, this is our identity. This is who we are. We will stay committed to that. We will continue on that journey. But within that, the middle blocks, the little blocks, the pebbles, that's where we truly believe in agility and the importance of being able to kind of flex and see what works and pivot and learn as you go. So we don't want to be overly rigid where we're not flexible and not willing to kind of adapt, especially as quickly as the environment and culture today adapts. So I think, again, as long as we have our core priorities and we have our vision in place, again, based on integrity, based on quality, based on what we want to deliver to our athletes, within that, we're gonna find what works best and make sure that our customer voice is heard, and that's what we deliver on.
Would you agree that that's helped you guys to maintain focus? Because I think that's such a hard piece too for people who are thinking about what they might want to go out and do and create and build. And it's like, there's so many different avenues nowadays that you can get lost in that a little bit. And I'm totally guilty of trying to take on a lot of different projects at once. And then I have to go back to that one thing and like that one mission. And it sounds like you guys did it in a really logical order by starting from there.
Yeah, I mean, we can call it logical. To be honest with you, I see it I'm a very simple thinker. And for us, it's the simplest way to go. I mean, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So if we know where we want to go and we know how we need to get there, we need to stay true to that line. If we start wavering back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
it makes us inefficient. It makes us lose focus. It makes us lose track. So we've got to stay on our line. We learn as we go. We continue to improve. We continue to adapt, but we've got to stay on our line, beeline it there, and not compromise on who we are. And I think something we anticipated, but is just inherent in the entrepreneurial journey, is resistance and
Oh yeah.
challenges, and the number of times you hear the word no. And fortunately, I'm extremely stubborn, and just relentless, right? And that's part of my nature. That's who I am. And every time I hear that word no, it's just like, okay, I'm going to push harder now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to go a little bit harder, and we're going to turn all of those no's one by one, or at least some of them, into yeses. And nonetheless, we're going to stay on our journey, committed to our values, committed to our vision, and keep pushing forward with that. And to be honest, the foundation within all of that is we want to use Athletifreak as a platform to do something positive, to give back and lead with inspiration. And as long as what we are doing is right, it's good for people, for communities, as long as it fits the value system that we believe in, we believe that doing good will result in good. And therefore we're gonna continue with that forward.
Let's talk more about the doing good piece. Obviously, I know about all of the charitable activity that's tied to the brand, but for our listeners, tell us more about that and some of the. I know you have a bunch of exciting projects lined up in the next weeks, even.
Yeah, we do. yeah, I mean, this is where our passion, again, we've got the athletic form, but you take that, you take wanting to inspire young children, the next generation, and also back to the concept I touched on earlier, which is movement brings people together. Movement is a uniting factor. And we've seen a lot of pain in the world in the last year plus. Some of it because of pandemic, but also some of it just because of how humans treat other humans because of differences.
Hmm.
And for us, if you think of an athlete and you think of sports, that freak brings us together. That freak doesn't differentiate what your color is. That freak recognizes you because you're passionate about something. And we think there's a lot of positivity there. The athletic lifestyle, the lifestyle of an athlete is very positivity driven. And if we can take all of that energy and bring it together, there's so much good that can be shared. And that's what we want to be able to harness and just do something positive with. So what we look to do is continue to partner with foundations to be able to use movement as a platform to bring positivity to communities, to bring communities together. So in fact, before we even launched Athletifreak, we started with I Commit Day. A very simple concept. We said, you know what, January 1st, 2021, everyone's going to be making New Year's resolutions. So at that point, we weren't even a brand yet. It was when we really first introduced the concept out there. And we launched a completely free 0 to 5K playbook that said, join us for 6 weeks. Every week, we're going to put a plan out there that's going to show you how to go from 0 to 5K. You can register for the event, do a 5K independently, virtually on January 1st. There's going to be weekly yoga classes, weekly nutrition recipes shared with you, just to be able to empower healthy and holistic living. And I mean, we went from zero, literally being zero, to having 350 people participate globally across 17 countries on I Commit Day, which was
amazing.
Really, I mean, for us, it's a small scale. It's a small step in the right direction, 350 people, but it means that we were able to impact and influence positivity in the lives of 350 people. And what those 350 plus people did was they decided to donate. And so they made donations. We collected donations of about $16,000.
That's incredible.
That went towards a foundation called Spread the Joy. So we partnered with Spread the Joy to be able to collect donations that go to them. That $16,000 was used to provide presents for children in hospitals with terminal illness. So 2,000 children received holiday presents through that cause. And that's where you get to see the cyclical nature of positivity, right? It starts with a vision that we want to promote movement. You start that. And you put the effort and the energy into motivating and inspiring movement. That movement impacts 350 people. Those 350 people donate, which then brings positivity to 2,000 children and their families. So now we're probably talking 7,000, 8,000 people impacted by what started with just a small virtual 5K. And I mean, that was our first project, our first initiative. It was phenomenal. I mean, just the joy that came out of this and partnering with Spread the Joy Foundation on this was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. And similar to that now, we have a few other initiatives that we're working on. And the idea is each month, we're going to try to have a program or a foundation that we work with, mostly geared towards children, around empowering, educating, and motivating movement towards positivity. In the end of the day, it's bringing people together.
Right. Which again, leading back to that mission and staying focused on that path. And I think that what you just said about even couching it and saying it was small with only 350 people, first of all, that is not small. I think that to go from 0 to 350 is huge. And I think these days, with kind of what I said earlier about our attention being grabbed in 7 million directions, it can feel relatively small, right? Compared to all the vanity metrics out there of Instagram followers and that sort of thing. But I love what you illustrated by saying, look, it went from 350 people to ultimately 2,000 families, which really could have led to as many as 8,000 people. It's like, look at that domino effect. And that's really cool. And I also think it's a great reminder for anybody out there who may be afraid to start something because they have this idea that if they are going to launch something, every I needs to be dotted and every T needs to be crossed versus just going for it. So to that end, what made the two of you guys decide like, okay, let's start with this commit day? Like what was kind of like your thought process around using that as the launch pad for showcasing the brand and ultimately then the apparel?
Sure. So I commit day is something that as a family, the four of us have been doing for 7 years now.
Oh, wow.
Every January 1st, we do a 5K together. We
Cool.
actually did our first through Lifetime when we used to live in Austin. They had a commitment day, 5K, and our next few were through Lifetime. And then those opportunities, as we saw that there wasn't an official event scheduled for that year, we as a family continued to do it. And so for the last 7-ish years, we've always done a 5K together between the four of us. 2 years ago, we had some friends and family join us. It became 4 of us, became 30 of us. Last year, we had more friends in the neighborhood join us, and we had almost 100 people do it just locally. And then this year, that wasn't an option. We couldn't tell
Right.
friends and family to come and join us. So we said, okay, let's make it virtual. And since we were doing it virtually, we said, well, why don't we make it a fundraiser and do something positive with it that goes beyond just ourselves? And it's what you mentioned, right? Taking a small concept, taking a small idea, and just not being afraid to just run with it and just go with it and experiment. And some things work and some things don't work. And for every idea we've had that stuck, we probably have dozens that failed. But at the end of the day, if you don't try, you fail before it goes anywhere. I mean, Wayne Gretzky, you don't make the shots that you don't take, right?
Mhm.
And so we truly believe in that. If we have a vision, we want to go for it. We want to try it. And in this case, we were very fortunate and humbled by what came of it in the end.
Your response was a perfect segue into talking about your own children and how they fit into all of this and you and Noor really getting them involved. And I wanted to ask what your conversations look like at home when you're talking about Athletifreak or even just talking about the values that are tied to the brand. How do you see your kids interacting with you and what, as a dad, what has that experience been like for you and being able to reflect on that?
It's been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible, to put it in one word. Um, I think there's so many intangibles that come out of it also. I mean, we are quite obsessive about what we're doing here. And you have to be, right? To go from zero to being a rookie to getting to the point where we really have a vision to get to, you have to be obsessive. And so this is nonstop what we are talking about. Any free moment we have, we're bouncing ideas off walls, we're brainstorming, and the kids are a part of that.
That's
So we
awesome.
have ideas as we're coming up with new designs, as we're coming up with different collaborations that we're working on. We're bouncing these ideas even off of the kids to say, "What do you think?" Because again, I mentioned this earlier. I'm a very simple thinker, and I think for an idea to be effective, it has to be digestible at every level, even for a child. And for that reason, I think it's really important to even get their input sometimes, because we get carried away and we think about things in complex ways, and a child will look at it and be like, oh, but you forgot this part, or why would you do that? It's so much easier to do this. And it's so refreshing to have their input sometimes, because it really grounds us. And at the end of the day, I mean, they're all in this just the way we are, which is the way it needs to be, because otherwise there would always be resistance, there would always be friction, there would always be, why are you doing this while I need you to be doing that, as opposed to, we're all in this together and we're all supporting each other. So I'll tell you something. I mean, we sold out initially on gear, and we went almost 5 weeks until we got our next order. And our two kids were the most critical of not having stuff.
They're like, you didn't have enough supply.
They were the most critical because they wanted their hoodies.
Yeah,
And we didn't give them hoodies from the first stock that came through.
that's
They're
pretty
like,
funny.
"Where's my hoodie?" So they were the first ones. They got their hoodies when the new gear came in. They were the first ones to carry their water bottles to school. And it's just amazing to see how passionate they are about this. And again, I mean, it takes a team. And at this point, it's the four of us, and we're all in it together.
Have you always recognized that you are a simple thinker, or did you ever have, and I'm asking this question to kind of set it up to see out of, have you ever run into any challenges or like scenarios of adversity where because you think that way, it was hard for you to deal with some sort of situation or anything like that?
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. I mean, being in the corporate environment, right? Uh, I think it's corporate environment, but then just even in culture today, concepts become much more complex in
Hmm.
my eyes than they need to be. Um, I think a strength that I've always had is being able to kind of cut through all of that and focus on what is the problem. More importantly, what's the solution? If you're in a group environment, if you're in a collaborative setting, it's very easy to get focused on the problem. I think once groupthink goes towards the problem, there's a very natural tendency to then start spinning around that problem and focusing on it and dwelling on it. For me, I don't have the patience for it. Two, again, for me, it's what's the problem? What's the solution? Let's work on it. Let's move on. And I think it can be a challenge, especially in the corporate setting. It has been, but a strength of mine or a competency of mine has been able to just cut through it and say, okay, how do we fix it? Because until we fix it, we're going to continue to have that problem. One of my favorite quotes is, "If your problem has a solution, then don't worry about it. If
That's
your
a great
problem
quote.
if your problem doesn't have a solution, then don't worry about it." Because either way, worry is only going to bring you down. So either you fix it or you accept it and you move on with what your next steps have to be. And I mean, that's just been my mentality.
Do you think that was innate or something you learned, maybe like a nature nurture thing? Do you think either of your parents are that way?
I mean, I think the number of times we've moved has made us very adaptable.
Hmm.
And being adapting is something that truly helps to just say, you know what, things are going to continue to change,
Right.
right? But I have to have my constants. I have to have my identity. And as long as I stay true to that, I'm okay with these other things changing because I will figure out how to embrace them and get the best out of everything I need to. So I think the number of times I've moved as a child, but also now as an adult, as with our family, has really made us more resilient, more adaptive, more relentless in staying true to our path, our vision, and optimizing everything around us. I
Mhm.
mean, just in the last 8 years, we've lived in three parts of New Jersey: Austin, Dallas, Charlotte, and Pennsylvania. In 9 years. In 9 years. And whenever I tell anyone that, the first
They're like,
question,
oh my God, wow.
well, yeah, so
Overwhelming.
one is, oh my
Right.
God, one is, wow,
Yeah.
two is, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Um, the question I always get back is, which was your favorite? Which one did you like the most? And I can't pick a favorite, right? Because every place you visit has its own personality.
Hmm.
Now it's up to you. Either you make the most of it or you get hung up on what was your favorite and forget to enjoy the present.
Right.
Right? So for us, it's always been wherever we are, let's make the most of it. Let's enjoy it. And they're all our favorites, right? Because there's no reason why you can't enjoy every experience that life has to offer you.
No, it's so true. I've thought about that so much myself recently, having moved a bunch, not to the extent that you guys have, but moved a few times over the last couple of years. And especially having left Charlotte thinking that it was going to be the place that I was going to stay and raise my family and all these things. So it felt very abrupt. And obviously, it was a conscious choice that I made. But at first, I really went back and forth of like, is this the right decision for me? And or am I letting all these external factors weigh in on why I think I should stay there versus where am I happiest and where do I feel like I have the most support, which is what I really needed at the time when I decided to make that move after ending my relationship. And I love what you talked about the external factors and and that quote that you shared about worry, because it also goes hand in hand with this idea of like, the only thing we can guarantee, the only thing we can quote unquote control is that things will always change. And I tell my clients that all the time because so many people, when it comes to their nutrition in particular, I see such a parallel to what you said. They focus so much on the food and then they forget about the sleep, the stress management of having a job, being a parent, all these different responsibilities and demands that are coming on them, that they're like zeroing in on the one thing that is honestly not as important until they fix all the other stuff, like until they can get quality sleep. I see it so much with people training. They're like, well, I have to get my workout in. And if I don't get that workout in, then there's no way I'm going to lose weight. But it's like they're doing it at the sacrifice of only like 4 hours of sleep. Well, there's only so long that you can continue to do that. And I'm saying this having been totally guilty of that mentality myself. So I just have such an appreciation for what you said, because I think it applies to so many different things in our life. And it's a reminder that we forget often.
It's a journey, right? I
Yeah.
mean, no one's ever going to be perfect.
Mm-mm.
And it's a matter of using every life lesson as an opportunity to improve. And you try something and it works, stick with it. You try something and it doesn't work, okay, adapt, improve, take it constructively, and now advance. Don't get hung up on that problem. You got to keep moving forward. And that I think that mentality, that ability to just continuously evolve, is and also not put too much pressure on yourself to be perfect. Yeah, embrace failure,
Yeah.
but take it and use it constructively to improve. So much power can come out of that.
How much do you think that mentality has allowed for you and Noor's success in growing and starting this business together and managing your relationship as business partners, but also as a couple?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it's been all about, right? Because we are both of the mindset that everything that leaves the doors, yeah, so everything external facing has to be perfect, right? Uh, Uncompromising perfection. Um, that's what we're committed to. But what goes on behind the scenes is far, far from that. And we've had to accept that that's just what it's going to be like. And we are not perfect. We are far from perfect. But all we can do is try our best and stay committed to trying our best, and supporting each other, and not ever getting, I mean, it happens, right? Oh, you forgot to do this, or you didn't do a good job with that. And just as humans, we naturally have a tendency to do that, but we quickly catch it and we're like, no, no, we're gonna make mistakes. This is part of the journey. How can we fix it? How can we improve it? How can we get better? How can we make sure that whatever leaves our doors is perfect by the time it gets out of there? It's just a constant reminder that we have to give to ourselves. We have to hold each other accountable to be accepting of failure with that. And again, even in that, we're not perfect. We do fall into that trap, but we just have to we just have to stay true to what we preach, and we should be okay.
What lessons have you taken from your corporate experience and now applied to building Athletifreak?
The number one lesson I would say that I've learned from my corporate background is just the importance of putting the customer first. Um, at the end of the day, every decision that we're making, what we bring it back to is, what does this mean to the athlete? Is this something they're going to like, dislike, receive, not be receptive to? Is it going to help improve a certain aspect of what they're doing? Um, the customer experience. So that's really been a very, very important lesson that I've been able to take from there, because I've been across multiple different organizations that span across customer first versus internal first. And what I know is we can do everything perfectly behind the scenes. If the customer's not happy, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So for us right now, it's really about perfecting what the customer receives, and how happy they are when they receive the black hoodie, the Unleash hoodie. And as long as we can take care of that, whatever's going on behind the scenes, and the grunt work we have to put in, the grind behind the scenes, those are things that we're going to continue to improve on.
And we talked about you making time for training and that being a pillar of your day, truly, especially with endurance. And I think I kind of skipped over this, and I did want to make sure I asked you, what does your workflow sort of look like between managing a full-time corporate job and building out this brand? Like what would you classify as a typical successful day, knowing that it may not always go this way?
Yeah, wow. I start very early. So typically my day will start somewhere around 4 a.m. or so. And it'll probably end between 11 and 12 at night. So you mentioned the importance of sleep.
Yes.
That I've never been a sleeper, so
Okay.
I'm not fond of sleeping. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it.
I
But I know
appreciate
it's
your
important.
honesty. Yeah,
I
I
know
appreciate
it's
your
important.
honesty.
And what's funny is Noor is the complete opposite. She needs her sleep.
But you
Um,
know what? It's good that she recognizes that about herself too, right? Because it kind of goes back to the point of what I was making earlier and telling the story about, like, forget the email, just like go out and move, like do what you have to do so that you can show up to be your best self. And
yeah.
in her case, she got to get her Z's.
Yeah, and it's funny because her and I are complete opposites in this, right? So I perform best in the morning. She performs best in the evening or later at night. And
Hmm.
and there's been growing pains, right? Just being able to kind of understand and adapt towards each other's working styles, which is
Sure.
very different than your living styles.
Totally.
Um, but yeah, for me, I mean, back to your question, my day will start around 4 a.m. I'll do some movement, some yoga actually early in the morning just to get my head right, and get into a space where mentally, again, I'm back to my core. And that's a priority for me to do that every morning. From there, I'll have a little exercise, some training that I'll do in the morning, have my breakfast, um, take care of several of the athletic responsibilities that I need to early in the morning, especially for some of the relationships I have that are abroad,
Hmm.
supply and whatnot. You know,
Sure.
they're working on a different time zone,
Oh
so it's
yeah.
actually convenient for me to do that earlier in the morning. Take care of all of that. Then I have my full day of my corporate job, and I mean, that's one of our core priorities. That's something I have to prioritize because that is what's brought us to be where we are as a family today. And it's not something, when it comes to integrity, that's not something I can compromise on or kind of fall back on. And especially because I am in a leadership position, I have an
You
organization
want to set the
reliant
example.
on me.
Yeah,
I have to continue to be a
of
leader in that
course.
space. I fulfill all of that. Any breaks we get, any opportunities we get, Noor and I will actually schedule those beforehand. So if I know I have a couple breaks in the day, we'll block that on her schedule as well. So we use those opportunities to connect and close off on any decisions we need to make together. If there's any conversations I need to have with partners, suppliers, vendors, etc., we do those during those slots. So I mean, you basically get the idea, right? Every 30 minutes is valued, every 30
Hmm.
minutes is accounted for. That's basically how our day goes. Once we get to 5, 6 o'clock, it's purely kid time. I mean, whatever the kids need, whether it's swimming practice, lacrosse practice, whatever it might be, it's theirs. That's where we give them their time. Um, I'm the crazy dad where if they're at lacrosse practice and it's outdoors, I've figured out what my 8 mile route is. So while they're practicing for an hour, I can get my 8 miles in. While they're at swim practice for an hour, that's where I'm doing my 1 mile swim or my 1 hour swim at that time. So basically finding each and every slot where I can get my training in without compromising on being there with them during their time. We have dinner together as a family every night without fail. That's not something that we'll miss out on. Get the kids to bed by 8:30, and then her and I are back to work for the next couple hours until we call it a night. And I mean, what we've given up is 2 hours of Netflix every night. That doesn't happen anymore. Um, excess time on the phone or scrolling or surfing the net. I mean, everything we do now is focused, it's prioritized, and it's a full day. I'm starting at 4, going until 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And
I
both
wanted
of
to ask
them
you
are
about
great.
your phone.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to ask you about your phone because I know you and we were talking about this on Instagram this week. And I said, like, one of my big priorities is to not touch my phone for at least an hour or so when I first wake up in the morning. Cause it's so easy to, especially with the work that I do, get lost in my DMs, right? And have this like need to answer people all the time. In you describing your routine of you get up, you train a little bit, you hit your yoga. When is the first time that you touch your phone? Like, how many hours would you say you spend without looking at it?
Oh, it's a terrible, terrible, terrible habit, which is why I expressed I need to learn to disconnect better. Um, because and for me, it's not the social media piece, but it's
Mhm.
more so the
Emails.
it's email for me.
Yeah.
My phone is going to be one of the first things I look at when I'm up.
Oh, I do the same thing. And I know how bad it is, but it's just like, that's why I wrote it on to keep myself accountable. I wrote it on the post that you had sent to me this week about some goals because I'll literally reach for it. And I know all the tricks of like, don't put your phone in your room, have your alarm on something else. Like, and I just,
And that's one of the problems, right? My
yeah.
alarm is on my
Mhm.
phone.
Right. Me too.
So one thing I have done though, this has been probably, I mean, I can't say I'm doing it well because it's only been 3 or 4, maybe a month or so that I've been
Mhm.
practicing it. So I wouldn't say I've perfected it yet. But I have been going anywhere between 2 to 2.5 hours in the morning. Um,
That's awesome.
so I'll pick it up, turn the alarm off, look at emails. I do that, but then I'll go about 2 to 2.5 hours without looking at it after that. So I am getting a little bit of a break there, and it's actually a very focused reason I'm doing that. It's because okay, I've woken up, I've seen what's important for me to focus.
Right. Hmm.
Now I'm taking the next 2 to 2.5 hours to process, to think, to actually problem solve, so that
Hmm.
once I come back to it, I'm actually constructive with my time as opposed to consuming and digesting. That's something that I really do treat separately. I think there's consuming, then there's digesting, and then there's applying. And for me, it's a very systematic process and important to be able to break those three down.
There are a lot of very successful people out there, and I'm sure you've heard this before because you just described it to a T, that have the process of studying their schedule every day.
Yeah.
And that's really essentially by you saying like I'm kind of going through my emails just to see like what should be on my radar. I see a parallel to that 100%. And I was listening to a podcast episode about that last week and how that's like people who have built these massive companies, they say like they spend a good 30 minutes just studying what's going to happen for the day to know what's coming and also have that kind of like check of accountability. Like, am I maximizing my time? Much to the way you were describing, like, okay, if my kids are doing this, how can I best focus on something that is going to be great for me and won't ultimately take away from them? And we can do it at the same time.
Absolutely, and it starts the night before.
Hmm.
Um, it starts at least the night before to already know this is what tomorrow looks like. So that way, when you wake up, boom, you hit the ground running, and you're not trying to figure it out at that point. I mean, if there's one lesson we've learned, yeah, it's truly how to not lose time or waste time. I mean, that
Hmm.
is the most limited resource we have.
Yep.
So how do we really make the most out of it while still maintaining a balance for the family?
How long would you say has it taken you to get into the rhythm that you just described?
Um, I mean, it's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
So
Like, do you
it's
think you really had to zero in on it more now with Athletic Freak being
oh,
full
oh,
throttle?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, once we made the commitment to say we're doing this, which has been now almost a year and a half, with that came a complete shift in mindset to say if we're doing this and we're not going to compromise on our children and we're going to continue to give them the time and energy that they deserve, um, we are basically not going to waste any time outside of that. And so, I mean, Noor and I, we love to sit down together at least 2 to 3 times a day, just to have a cup of coffee. Um, but it's at those times that we're making decisions and we're brainstorming. And I mean, we're finding any and every opportunity we have to really get the most out of those times. And I think what makes it so easy to do this, because it sounds like it could be a grind, it sounds like it could be a lot of pressure. It
It
doesn't
could,
feel
but you don't have that tone in your voice. Like you have a very calm sense about it. That's why I'm so fascinated by your outlook.
it's driven purely by passion. I mean, we love what we're doing. And when you love what you're doing, when you're passionate about it, when you're enjoying it, it's not work, right? You're doing it because for us, it's our third baby. I mean, this is our child.
Yeah.
This is what all of our love and energy is going to go into now. And if we're enjoying it as much as we are, we're happy to put every free moment into it. And ensure that we're not only doing it mechanically, but we're doing it with love. We're doing it the right way. And I think that's what's really special. I mean, that's what brings the two of us together to really make this perfect partnership, this perfect collaboration, is because we're both equally passionate about it, albeit in different ways,
Mhm.
but we are equally passionate about it.
And with that comment about it being your third baby and the growth of it and everything, where do you see, what are some of the goals that you guys have set for the next, whether that's, I don't know how you look at your planning with everything, but whether that's in the next 6 months or in the next year, you can include obviously like merchandise drops and that sort of thing, or even just the growth of the brand itself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm generally a believer of having short-term goals and long-term goals at the same time. Yeah, I mean, short-term, we know that we need to broaden our portfolio, right? So we've come out with hoodies, t-shirts, and a water bottle, and the idea was we're going to focus on very few things,
Mhm.
but we're going to do it right, and we're going to put something out there that we're proud of. And the reason for that is because the main concept we put out is earned pride, and whomever wears our gear is going to wear it with earned pride because they've worked to be recognized as a freak, as an athletic freak. So we started very small, focused on quality, focused on the integrity of our gear. But before the end of the year, we want our SKU list, our number of items out there, to be 4 times what it is right now. That's the target we have for
Okay.
ourselves. And therefore, we're taking the practical actions to get there, without compromising on quality. Yeah. Similarly, in the short term, we know that for us to be authentic and true to what we believe Athletifreak stands for is the community engagement and the give back. And therefore, we have a number of events or collaborations that we must do this year that are purely geared towards giving back to our communities. And probably more than 50% of our energy is going towards just focusing on that. Because if we do that right, whatever happens with the gear, if we do that right, at least we know that we're improving the lives of the people that we touch. And that's really, really important to us. So that kind of sets up kind of our short term where we want to be over the next, call it 6 to 12 months. Long term, we're not looking to be a brand that comes out with a couple hoodies, couple t-shirts, couple tanks, and that's it, and continue to recycle. We're looking to really make Athletifreak a standard known brand, something that resonates across athletes, more importantly, passionate athletes globally. So our visions are quite aggressive, quite robust, and I think realistic. I mean, if we do what we are committed to doing and we stay true to our vision and we continue to go down that journey, um, I'm not one that believes in limitations. So we're gonna push as hard and as fast as we can, and whatever the world has for us, whatever the universe has for us, we'll continue to take it.
It's very clear how thoughtful and calculated you've been about so many pieces to this. And in the time that we've been talking, we have not gotten to more on the community piece and who represents the Athletifreak brand. And you kind of hit on it a little bit by saying that it's earned pride. And I know you, just from conversations with myself, talking to you about other people who you're partnering with for Athletifreak, and I'm sure conversations that you have with both your wife and your children, you guys are extremely thoughtful about who you want to represent Athletifreak. And I love just the fact that you call your brand ambassadors icons. And I know there was, I'm sure, intention behind that name. So tell me about the icons. And while we kind of like took a super long-winded route of getting here, we do want to use this podcast as an announcement that I'm very excited to be partnering with you guys in that capacity and just seeing where we can take this relationship. But Let's unpack that a little bit. Tell me about the brand ambassador piece of Athletifreak.
Absolutely. The one of the main pillars of Athletifreak is our icons, and the icons that we partner with, that we collaborate with. And extremely excited to have you, Krista, join the team as an icon,
Thank
because
you. Me too.
you truly embody what it means to be an icon. And what is an icon? Yeah. So um, I actually go away from the term brand ambassador,
Hmm.
because for me, what an icon is, for Athletifreak, what an icon is someone that lives the Athletifreak mentality. They have the passion, they have the drive, they have the grind to go out and be the best version of themselves through movement, through holistic, healthy living, and they've kind of found their calling. They found how movement is their answer to continuing their journey in life and being the best version of themselves. However, there's more to it than that, right? There's many people that do that. There's very few that take that as a platform and use it to inspire others to not only improve their lives, but to actually bring improvement to the lives of the people around them. And that's what the iconic mentality is all about. It's about using movement, using healthy living, using nutrition to also now inspire and motivate others to embrace it the same way and improve their lives. And those are the icons. So we're extremely selective in terms of who we partner with. It's not a pure go out and sell our t-shirt type model. It's not a you're an influencer, go out and be an influencer model. It's truly you embody, you live the lifestyle, you live the mentality, and you use it as a way to bring positivity towards others. And the reason for that is because if we can partner with people that truly believe in the vision and live the vision, then we're all working in the same direction. We're all harmoniously kind of supporting each other. And at the end of the day, that's what a community is. It's a group of like-minded people that work together towards a mission. And I mean, the group of icons that we have so far is just an amazing, amazing set of leaders within their own spaces. And I'm on a daily basis, I'm continuing to just learn from our icons and be inspired by them. So really appreciating and enjoying that relationship.
And I know you've mentioned to me a couple of them have really kind of spearheaded the upcoming community events that you have and charity partnerships that you'll be announcing. And I think probably by the time we air this episode, your newest one, and forgive me, I can't remember what it's called, but you have one coming up like in the next few days, right?
We actually have three that are lined up to be in April, May, and then June.
Okay.
Um, at the end of April, which we'll be announcing pretty soon, is our 4-4-48 challenge. So one of our icons is actually, he brought it up and he's like, let's do this. Alex. And so Alex and I will be doing this 4-4-48 challenge, which means run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours, inspired by David Goggins.
Yep.
And so that's one we're going to be doing. The other one is actually with an organization called Gigi's Playhouse, which is a performance center for individuals with Down syndrome. And we're going to be hosting boot camps for Gigi's Playhouse through the month of May, most probably. And again, this is one where an icon came and said, you know what, I'd love to do something with children that have any form of disability or any way to really engage and support them. So I was able to connect with Gigi's and we were able to say, you know what, can we try this? And they love the concept, so we're doing that together. And just like that, right? I mean, again, these icons they're leaders, they're inspirational, they're creative thinkers. And the discussion that we have with our icons is the last thing we want to do is take your creativity and take your powers and put it in a box. So feel free to think broad, think creatively, put anything on the table, and let's see how we can bring it to life. And whether it's through Athletifreak, whether it's through the iconic model, or whether it's in our day-to-day lives, I think that's so important to just dream big and go after it, and not let the no's of the world be a reason not to try. You got to try. You got to try. And if it doesn't work, okay, you learn from it, you get stronger, and then you succeed on your next one.
Yeah. And that 100% speaks to your point that you made in describing yourself as being stubborn and relentless and taking that no and saying, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to show you how well I can do it too. And I just love
Along the way,
yeah, go ahead.
we're going to bring them on board. Whoever said
Yeah,
no, it's
right?
not about going out and proving people wrong. It's about saying, I understand you had your doubts, you had your questions. This is what we can do together now. Come on board, and together we're
Mhm.
stronger.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a really cool way to think about those relationships with other people representing Athletic Freak because it is really different. I've shared this with you in phone conversations we've had. It's often when somebody reaches out to you about a partnership in this space, it tends to be like the very typical, more transactional, if you will. I think that's probably the best word to describe it. And like, here's our brand. We would love for you to take some photos in our clothing, promote it, do a giveaway, whatever it is. And I'm not knocking that for the sake of brand promotion. It has its place and it's very tactical. But I do think there's a lot to be said for, and really is the reason why I was so intrigued by what you were doing for building the idea in tandem with what's important to these icons, because I think you said it so well in describing the upcoming events that you have. Had those few people not even suggested that to you, maybe you weren't familiar with those organizations, right? You wouldn't have found them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there needs to be a spark
Hmm.
for anything to happen. There needs to be a spark, and that's the beauty of having a team, right? Because no one person is better than anyone else. Everyone's different. We all have our different strengths and our different weaknesses. And when you bring a team together, you get that diversity of thought. You get that diversity in creative thinking. I truly believe in the concept that we rise by raising others and supporting one another. And everyone kind of brings their creativity, their thought, their energy to the table, and we see what works and go after it.
Absolutely. Well, I want to be respectful of your time because now we know that Mo's got a tight schedule. We don't want to blow it out of the water over there and mess with your rhythm. But I'm so excited to be partnering with you guys, having a connection to your brand, learning more about you. For as much as we have spoken in the past, I learned so many new things today, and I'm sure I will continue to do so. And I can't wait to meet your family now that we've talked so much about them too. And I just think that's really special and amazing that you're all in this together. And I'm so happy that you underscored the team aspect of this. I just, by nature of my own fitness background and the clients that I have trained over the years, I've definitely had a focus on families myself and moms and getting those connections. So I am very confident there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast who can certainly resonate with that message. And I appreciate you sharing all of that. But with all that said, are you ready to move into the lightning round?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Perfect. All right, let's see. So I'm not going to ask you what your favorite city that you've lived in because, like we talked about, you have an opinion on that, and I'm glad you said that. But I do want to know, of all the places that you've lived, and you could pick one, two, there's so many, but is there like a particular feature about, let's say, Texas that you really enjoyed training there as opposed to in Jersey? Because they're different environments.
Yeah, same thing. I think you've got to be able to embrace the beauty and the personality of every place. Um, Austin, I loved the town lake environment. So running right through Austin is town lake, and being able to be in a city and have this beautiful river run right through, and the training that gives you, right? Because you have Barton Springs where you can go swimming. You've got these amazing trails right around town lake where you can go running, and the city is just 2 blocks away. Um, loved Austin for that reason. We lived about 10 miles outside of downtown, which was hill country. So you've got the flats, but then you've also got these amazing country roads. So I loved that part about Austin. Um, Being in the South, I actually personally I like the heat. I prefer warmer climates. So whether it was Austin, Dallas, or Charlotte, I really enjoyed the hotter temperatures. So for me that was great. Charlotte I enjoyed because what a sweet spot to be in, right? You're what, an hour and a half, 2 hours from the mountains, hour and a half, 2 hours from the beach. So enjoyed that because of also just the training that gives you, being able to go to the beach and swim in the ocean, versus also go up in the mountains and get some training there. Also, just for vacations, it was phenomenal. Um, New Jersey, where we are here, is just all hills. So that can either be miserable because it means some really tough climbs, or it's amazing training because, I mean, we live on the top of the hill where our house is. So the last 1.5 miles of my every run and every ride is uphill, and it hurts like hell. but I know it's making me stronger. And I used to hate it initially, but I love it now. It's a part of what we do. Plus, you get some beautiful sunrises and sunsets up here. So it's just about taking whatever the universe gives you and embracing it and making the most of it.
What is your, or maybe you don't have a favorite, but of all of the elements of training and competing in Ironman competition, what's your favorite piece? Is it the swimming, the running, the biking? Do you like it all?
Running. I love
Running.
running.
Okay.
I absolutely love running.
What's the hardest part?
What's not? They're all tough. I mean, you have days where, for me, swimming has always been the toughest. I'll say that because
Okay.
I always knew how to play in the water, but I honestly learned how to swim after I decided I was going to try an Ironman.
Okay.
Watching
So the technical piece.
watching
Yeah.
YouTube videos is how I started, which is a terrible way, because you basically get good at doing it wrong.
That's I'm glad that you recognize that. I think I've shared this with you, but I was a swimmer, and I think people really underestimate the technical piece of being in the water, and it's also a feeling associated with it. Like, you know, when your stroke is off, and I know that's probably hard if you're listening to this and you're not a swimmer, that's like harder to kind of wrap your head around, but I'm sure you can relate to that statement.
I very quickly
Yeah.
understood that I was good at playing in the water, but I didn't know what it
Mhm.
meant to swim. And then I learned to swim, but I essentially got really good at bad form. And then having to break that cycle and
Yes.
relearn how to swim
Mhm.
was quite a journey. And as much as I hated it, I grew so much from that because it was such a humbling experience, that I don't like swimming, or I didn't like swimming, but now I love it because it's the one time where my head's underwater and there's no sound around me. It's just purely me and my thoughts.
What's your go-to post-training meal? I know we talked a little bit about breakfast, but what do you like to refuel with?
Um, after every training session, I'm having a smoothie with granola, so that's my favorite. I love that. Never get tired of it. But I love weekend pancakes. Um,
Nice.
so on the weekend, whether it's my Sunday long training or Saturday or Sunday, I've got to have either pancakes or waffles. And I love food, and I just for me that does it. I mean, I'll be thinking about my pancakes while I'm out running, just saying, okay, to get back.
That's a good motivation, right?
Yeah, I want those banana walnut pancakes as soon as I get back.
Where did you train, or actually not train, where did you compete in your first Ironman?
So my first, I've done Galveston, Austin. Some of these are half, some of these are fulls. I did one in upstate New York. I've done Florida twice, and where else have I gone? There's another one I'm missing. I wouldn't say I've competed though. I'm definitely not like a professional competitive triathlete. I'm participating and competing with myself in a very aggressive
There
way.
you go. You're still
Um,
competing for
but
that
no
regard.
means, by no means am I podium.
But we don't want to downplay it, because look, like, that's a serious, you said it best yourself. Your whole family was calling you a freak for what you were doing, because even just training for it, it seriously is a commitment.
And that's what I love about it. I mean, it's not about the race itself. It's the journey,
Mhm.
and just that daily, just I love it. I mean, it's something that I need it. It's something I need in my life. And it what I think is also really cool about it is how it has brought our family together. Like, our daughter is 8, sorry, she's 8. She's done 3 triathlons.
That's so cool.
Our son is now 11, he's done 5. And
Wow.
it's funny because just 2 days ago I was going through some old pictures and videos of their first triathlons, and it was just such a beautiful thing to watch. And just the culture that it's kind of brought into our family life. And what's cool is I'm a horrible swimmer, but they're both topping their groups right now in terms of swimming because
That's
they're
awesome.
taking the time to learn the sport,
Right.
and they're excelling with it. So it's really brought a very positive dynamic into our family.
So what I'm hearing is, if anybody out there wants to be inspired to train for some big events, we should come to Mo's house and listen to what you guys talk about
Yeah,
around the
I'll,
table.
I'll help with the spark, and I will very happily be the nag that keeps on you and
To
just
check on you, your accountability buddy.
But at the end of the day, that motivation, it's got to come from within. You got
100%. What I always tell people, honestly, is I am careful about using the word motivation versus inspiration. And I always say motivation is bullshit because it's a feeling, and inspiration is what lasts. So with that, what inspires you every day?
Just to know that we're not done yet. I mean, we can still be better. We can still improve, and settling for less is a compromise. And I just don't believe in that. I mean, I believe in whatever we do, whether it's how we can improve the lives of others or how we can improve our own lives. Our responsibility here is to be the best version that we can be. And we do it for ourselves. We do it for others. We do it to inspire our children. And I'm passionate about it. I believe in it.
I see a couple books sitting back there. So I have to ask if you're a big reader or not. And if you are, do you have a favorite, or are those Noor's books?
I am not a big reader. This is probably the thickest book here that I've ever read about Gandhi, who, for me, and I mentioned it earlier, where I went through a really hard phase with kind of who I am and Indian background, settling into new cultures.
Yeah.
So that book is now 25-ish, whatever years old. And that's something I referred to and read through at a very young age, that actually just helped me bring positivity towards the concept of racism and how to face it without reacting to it, right? Because there was a time where I would be called the name and I would react, and that would lead to a fight. That doesn't solve anything. You know, you focus on the problem, you don't focus on the solution. And believe it or not, that book alone helped bring me some inspiration, helped bring clarity of thought to me on how love and positivity can not only improve our lives, but also those around us. And from then on, that's just been my mindset. That's been my mentality, that it's not about being good alone. It's about who else can you help, and together, how can everyone kind of advance together?
I love that. That's beautiful. And last but not least, I mentioned this to you before we hit record, so maybe you've thought about it throughout the course of our conversation, but I'm a big believer in manifestation, and I want to know, in a year from now, in listening to the podcast, if you were to play it again and think about where Athletifreak was today and where it will be, I want you to tell me very emphatically, which I don't think you'll have a problem with, but what can we expect for your version of, if you have reached a new level of success in a year from now, what does that look like for Athletifreak?
No, that's a great question, and it's really important to have that vision. Number one, I'd say we would have improved the lives, and I don't know what the number is, but we would have somehow had an impact or improved the lives of several people, hopefully more than 4 digits, and their families. That's really important to us, and something that we're completely, absolutely committed to. On the business front, we want to continue to be viewed as high quality, high integrity, and we're going to just continue to work on that. We obviously want to have a much bigger portfolio and offering. As far as our mentality and where and how Noor and I think, hopefully no different than where we are today. We want to be equally, if not, probably not equally, we want to be 10 times more passionate, if that's even possible. And we want to continue to be hungry. We want to find every little flaw that we have and figure out how we can improve it, and just continue that cycle of continuous improvement. So we want to do good. We want to do it in a good way. And we just want to stay passionate and continue to enjoy what we're doing.
Well, all of that sounds fantastic, and I'm very excited and truthfully honored that you approached me and asked me and really took time to get to know me, to be a part of your brand. And I hope that I can contribute in even the smallest way possible to all of those goals and then some. And Mo, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show today to share more about Athletifreak, but more about yourself and your philosophy and your outlook. This was such a great conversation. I learned so much from it. So tell everybody where they can find find you. I'll link obviously the Athletifreak brand down in the show notes, Instagram, the website, etc. But is there anywhere else? I know you started a podcast yourself, so where should everybody connect with you guys?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, to start with, Krista, thank you for even having me and for the conversation today. Some really good questions, which I think really brought about some really rich conversation, and even had me thinking about things that I need to think about more often. So thank you.
Love when that happens.
Thank you for that. Welcome everyone to come and find us. We like to make it simple. We like to make it easy. So you can find our website, www.athletifreak.com. You can find us on Instagram at Athletifreak, Facebook at Athletifreak. And we do have a podcast that we've just started. We've had a few episodes out there where we connect with other inspiring leaders. You can find that. It's called My Inner Superpower with Mo. And we are on Spotify, on Apple, so all of the major podcast platforms.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again. And I hope for everybody who's tuned in today that you guys enjoyed a lot from this conversation, even just a little bit. If there's any lesson that you got from it that you want to share with somebody else, a message that really resonated with you that you think someone could benefit from, please share the podcast. I can't emphasize that enough. I have said at the end of some other shows that it's actually even more important than leaving a review. So we appreciate you guys spreading the word and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.